Let me tell you about this time that in the United States Army, I got fired. Now, of course, not fired like I got kicked out of the Army, but a soldier essentially, in some ways, can get fired from their position in the Army. Because that's a possibility, right? People have asked me before, can you get fired in the Army? And essentially getting fired from the Army in the same equivalence as it is in the civilian world means you're getting kicked out of the Army. You have to do something really serious for that to happen, and you're probably going to jail possibly, or you committed some pretty horrible crime that you're getting kicked out of the Army for that crime. Now, as what can happen is if you do screw up and you're in a certain position, you can get fired from that position. For example, I've seen people get fired from being a platoon sergeant, right? This individual was a platoon sergeant, was messing up. They got fired from being a platoon sergeant, probably got sent to another unit to go be a platoon sergeant there, but nonetheless, from their current position, they got fired from doing that. And there's other cases of other kind of situations where maybe a non-commissioned officer, maybe even an officer, which usually is pretty bad if an officer gets kind of removed from their position, but there are those kind of positions or kind of times where someone could get fired from their position. And let me tell you about the time that happened to me. So it was a dark, gloomy night. No, maybe not that kind of a crazy story, but I was deployed to Iraq. This was my second deployment in Iraq, and I was the NCOIC for the ammo. I was the ammo section sergeant, and I guess I messed up good enough to get fired from being the ammo section sergeant. So here's what happened. We had a mission that was kicking off early in the morning, and the platoon sergeant had said, hey, you and your guy that's going to be going on this mission, go ahead and get your vehicle staged into this area, and then the mission's kicking off in the morning. So those were the instructions, and I guess I didn't really comply with those instructions. I didn't really do it the way that I was supposed to. So what happened was my roommate, he was going on the mission as well. He had the security vehicle, and he was like, hey, I have to go down to the motor pool in the morning. If you want, I can just give you a ride early in the morning to go grab the vehicle down in the motor pool, and then you can bring it up rather than you have to go get it now. I was like, yeah, sure, we can do that, which I should have. I should have just gone and got the vehicle and brought it up there then, but I was like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll just go and go with you in the morning then. So the morning came, and the people were looking for me. They weren't actually, ready to leave yet, but they were looking for the vehicles. They were supposed to go on the mission with them, and so the vehicles weren't there when they were supposed to be because I was going to get them, bring it up there. We weren't late for mission, but the vehicles weren't up there, so that caused, I guess, a little bit of panic from the other individuals. They were not a part of my platoon. They was part of another unit. And I guess they were expecting the vehicles to be there already when they were kind of doing the pre-mission stuff. I was just planning on doing the pre-mission stuff, going to grab the vehicle, going up there, still on time and doing the pre-mission stuff. But they were a little bit early. They didn't see the vehicles there like they were expecting them to be. And so I guess, they kind of started getting a hold of people and being like, hey, where are these vehicles at? They're supposed to be going on this mission this morning. So nonetheless, when I came back from mission, I heard about it. They were kind of mad that I didn't have the vehicles there staged in the morning. The platoon sergeant was even like, I thought I told you to put the vehicles there last night. They'd be already there in the morning. I was like, I was just gonna go get them in the morning, with so-and-so because he was going down there anyways, and I was gonna bring them up there. So I was still on time, but, I just didn't have them there early, I guess. Nonetheless, screwed up. I mean, I can't really say this was like the icing on the cake because there wasn't like a bunch of screw-ups leading up to this point. It was really just this one, and that was it. And so that was enough that he was in that kind of mood or whatever the case was, that it was like, all right, well, you're no longer the section sergeant for the ammo squad. You're going to be going over to this other section, and so, which was one of my other team leaders in my section, that person was getting promoted or getting moved to being the section sergeant. It wasn't really necessary a promotion because the individual was still the same rank. They just had a different title. So they were going to be moved to being the section sergeant for ammo, and I got moved over to another squad. So I was then going from being a section sergeant to now being a team leader. I was still the same rank. I didn't get reduced to any rank or anything like that. It was just my role. So it was kind of like, I guess, all right, it was less responsibility, I guess. But at the same time, some of that responsibility comes with some different perks that I also lost as well, I guess you could say. So I was now a team leader in I think it was the cargo section, I think is what it was, or something like that. So I was now a team leader over there. One of my other individuals that was a team leader was now their section sergeant for the ammo section and everything like that. And this lasted for probably, I don't know, maybe a month, maybe a month and a half. It didn't seem like very long, maybe even less than a month. I don't know, maybe it just felt like a long time for me before things eventually did go back. I was pretty good at my job, not to, kind of toot my own horn kind of a thing, or, trying to bump myself up, to say I'm, amazing kind of a thing. If I was so amazing, I would have gotten fired in the first place. But I was pretty good at my job. I feel like I did the job really well, and it was, a tough job to do. There's a lot of things with ammo and an ammo section that was kind of complicated, and things that are, have to be done a certain way. And if you don't do it a certain way, then things get all screwed up. So my replacement was not really able to keep up with those things. So they were screwing up left and right. They were not able to do all the stuff, at least that's what I was told anyways. I was hearing from other individuals, I wasn't seeing it firsthand, but other individuals telling me, so-and-so's messing this up, they're getting in trouble, they're not doing it the right way, blah, 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 all this stuff like that. So after a little bit of time, they eventually realized, okay, we need Sergeant Chaos to come back to being the section sergeant for the ammo section. So I came back to being the section sergeant for the ammo squad and everything returned back to normal and everything, but there was a time in the Army where I got fired from my position. So you gotta be cautious, sometimes, like I said, I didn't get reduced in rank anything, I didn't lose any pay, but there were definitely perks, right? Being the section sergeant, only having one person to answer to was a little bit convenient compared to going back down to being a team leader, where I now had two people to answer to because I had the section sergeant and then I also had the platoon sergeant. So you had a little bit more, hierarchy to deal with. You had a little bit less perks of certain things because now you have other people that you have to kind of get permission from compared to, kind of running a section. So it definitely, sucked, getting fired from that position. It's the only time I ever got fired from a position in the Army that I can remember, at least. It's always the one that kind of stands out, if so, but it's the only time it really happened. I was pretty lucky that I never got reduced in rank or anything like that. No loss of pay, no Article 15s, but that's kind of the biggest screw up I ever had, was kind of moving from being the ammo section sergeant to getting fired from that position to going to be a team leader in the cargo section. But like I said, eventually I got my title back. I went back to being the section sergeant for the ammo squad and got those perks back of only having one person to really have to answer to, and that was the platoon sergeant. I mean, technically it's the platoon sergeant plus the first sergeant, but you know what I mean. It's definitely, you're really only dealing with the platoon sergeant. You're not really dealing with the first sergeant like the platoon sergeant has to deal with it. So it was a little bit different, so there's a lot of kind of perks that I was able to get back by getting my role back as that section sergeant. And I kept that title for the rest of the time that I was in the Army, because that was the last unit I was in the Army with. That was my last title, and I was good at that job. They didn't want me to even leave. They had someone who was replacing me, and they weren't very confident that person was going to be able to do the job that I was doing. And in fact, so much that I ended up getting stuck doing another national training rotation, prior to when I was supposed to be getting out of the Army, because they weren't that confident in my replacement individual and the skills that I had. So they really wanted me to go to NTC with them to be able to do this job, because it's very important during NTC. It's a little bit different during a field problem, but a little bit bigger of a kind of picture with the National Training Center. So I got stuck going to the National Training Center because I was so good at my job, I guess. It's kind of the thing with the Army. Sometimes you're really good at your job, then you get to do other people's job for them, or you get stuck in those kind of situations, which in the end kind of cost me from being able to, be able to get out of the Army on time like I had originally planned. And if you want to learn about that, I actually have a video that talks about, why I stayed in for so long, and it kind of explains why I stayed in for so long. And I think I might even go into a little bit about like what it was like towards getting out and how it was kind of complicated. So if you want to check out that video, by all means, check it out right here. Thanks for hanging out. Check out my links down in the description box. Hit that thumbs up. I'm Christopher Chaos. I'll see you next time. See ya.